Why the Bavli? First, the question needs to be addressed. Why not the Palestinian sources? Why are the Jerusalem and the Midrashim so restrained with traditions or reactions to the person of Jesus? The answer to this question is relatively easy. Palestinian Judaism was under the direct and continuously growing impact of Christianity in the Holy Land. When the Emperor of the West, Constantine, defeated the Emperor of the East, Licinius, in 324 CE, it was the first time a Christian would become the ruler of Palestine, with profound and long-lasting consequences, not least for the Jews. Already in 313, Constantine had issued the Edict of Milan, in which he granted legal status to Christianity, officially ending the persecution of Christians. Now, after the victory over his rival in the East, Constantine could promulgate and carry through the edict also in the east of his empire, including Palestine. Now began the escapable and inexorable process that would lead to the eventual triumph of Christianity in Palestine, a triumph that clearly did not leave the Jews unaffected. Christian communities spread through Palestine. Christian churches were built, a Christian infrastructure was set up, and Christian pilgrims were attracted from all parts of the empire. Helena, the emperor's mother, visited Palestine in 327 CE and founded a number of churches, most important and magnificent among them the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem and the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, although the construction of the former had already begun before she arrived in Jerusalem. No doubt, the emperor did not need much persuasion by his mother. Relics were found in great numbers, not least the relic of the cross, allegedly and timely discovered by the Queen Herzog, which served as the main attraction of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The rise of Christianity in Palestine does not mean that the Jews were deprived of all the rights and under the constant threat of persecution. Such a bleak picture certainly does not do justice to the nevertheless flourishing religious and cultural Jewish life, predominantly in the Galilee after the Bar Kokhba revolt. But there can be no doubt either that the religious and political freedom of the Jews was more and more limited by a growing anti-Jewish legislation, and that the Jews gradually became a minority against the increasing aggressive majority of the Christians in Palestine. That such a climate was not propitious for an unbiased debate between Jews and Christians, let alone for a Jewish critic of the hero of the Christian faith, can hardly come as a surprise. If we compare the situation of the Jews and the Christians in Palestine with the conditions under which both live in Babylonia, we get a different picture. Under the dynasty of Sassanians, which the 3rd century CE replaced the Parthians as Arsacids, the Zoroastrian religion with its strong antagonism between God and evil and its fire worship became the uniting religious force in the West and multi-ethnic Persian Empire. Whether or not Zoroastrianism can be described as a state religion, as some scholars suggest, there can be no doubt that it was closely related to the claim to power of the Sasanian kings, who promoted it and used it mainly for their political purposes. They gave the Magians Magi, the priests of the Zoroastrian religion, almost unlimited power when they served it politically. And from this higher point of view of national policy, it did not make much of a difference to which deviant religion a victim of the Magians' religious zeal belonged. A grave example of this Zoroastrian fervor against any other religion can be found in the famous inscription put up by Katir, one of the most powerful Magians during the reign of Balaam II, 276 until 293. And for the love of our master and the gods, and for the sake of his own soul, he Balaam II raised my Katir's rank and my titles in the empire, and in all the provinces, in every heart of the empire, the acts of worshipping Ormat and the gods were enhanced, and the Zoroastrian religion and the Magi were greatly honored in the empire, and the gods, water, fire, and domestic animals attained great satisfaction in the empire, but Ahriman and the idols suffered great blows and great damages, and the false doctrines of Ahriman and of the idols disappeared from the empire and lost credibility. And the Jews Yahud, Buddhists Saman, Hindus Brahman, Nazarenes Nasra, Christian, Baptist Magdak, and Manichaeans Zandik were smashed in the empire, their idols destroyed, and the habitations of the idols annihilated and turned into abodes and cities of the gods. This is a powerful declaration of the Zoroastrian faith, and a declaration of war against all the other major religions in the Persian Empire. Jews and Christians are, together with the other heresies, on an equal footing as far as the chief Magian's wrath is concerned. With no difference whatsoever, the Jews are even mentioned first. Yet, this official attitude, or rather the desired ideal of the Zoroastrian clergy, does not convey the full picture. The reality was quite different. In reality, the Christians were much worse off than the Jews, and this for very concrete political reasons, where Christianity became an officially recognized and patronized religion under Constantine and his successors. The major enemy of the Sasanian Empire suddenly turned out to be a Christian, and this did not leave the status of the Sasanian Christian subjects unaffected. The Christians became suspected of being disloyal to the state and favoring the enemy, of being Rome's fifth column in the midst of the Sasanian Empire. Large-scale persecution of the Christians broke out, first under Schäfer II, 309 until 379, then under Yasgard the first, 399 until 422 until 321. Balaam the 5th, 421 until 439, and Yasgad the 2nd, 439 until 457. When Constantine, shortly before his death in 337 CE, intervened in newly Christianized Armenia, Schäfer II was forced into a direct confrontation with his Christian opponents. This threat, just at the front door of the Sasanian Empire, with its barely controllable border, clearly did not remain unnoticed by the Sasanian Christians and may have exceeded expectations. We do know that still in 337, Avraham, the Syrian church father, triumphantly proclaimed in his demonstration 5 the ultimate victory of Constantine and the Christians. The people of God have received prosperity, and success awaits the man who has been the instrument of that prosperity, Constantine. But disaster threatens the army, which has been gathered together by the efforts of a weak and portman puffed up with vanity, Sapur. The Roman Empire will not be conquered, for the hero, whose name is Jesus, is coming with his power, and his armor will uphold the whole army of the empire. Such expectations certainly did not escape the attention of Sapur, all the more so as Constantine's son and successor in the east, continued to interfere in Armenia in favor of the pro-Christian party. When Sapur in 338 unsuccessfully besieged the border city of Nisibis, he finally took action against his Christian subjects and started the first and prolonged persecution of about 40 years of the Christians in the Sasanian Empire. We are well informed about this persecution by a large collection of texts in Syria dating from the time of Sapur II and called the Acts of the Martyrs. They are of varying historical value, but on the whole give a vivid picture of the situation. One of the most prominent texts, the martyrdom of Mark Simon, the Catholicos of the Oriental Church, sets the tone and displays the inextricable mixture of political and religious issues involved. When Schäfer promulgated an edict imposing on his Christian subjects double taxes, Simon refuses to obey and got cut. According to the Acts of Martyrs, in a long debate with the king and his dignitaries, that finally resulted in his martyrdom. Simon's refusal was duly recorded by the Persian officials and reported to the king, who, reacting with anger and fury, exclaimed, "Simon wants to make his followers and his people rebel against my kingdom and convert them into servants of Caesar, their co-religionist. Therefore, he does not obey my order. The Caesar, of course, is the Christian Emperor Constantius, and what is at stake here, at the very beginning of the controversy, is not so much a religious dispute. Altogether, to be sure, this was to follow soon, but rather the loyalty of his Christian subjects to the king. Unlike the Jews, who has every reason to distrust the Christian emperor because of his rule in Palestine and to be loyal to their Sasanian king, the Christian aroused the suspicion of reason. And this is precisely how the Acts of Simon continues. The Jews it accused are not only aware of the Christian disloyalty to the king, they effectively take advantage of it and blacken the Christian's name before Shapur. Using the full arsenal of Christian anti-Jewish stereotypes, the Jews have always been against the Christians. They killed the prophets, crucified Jesus, stoned the apostles, and are thirsty for the Christians' blood. It claims that the Jews slandered Simon as follows. When Shapur, the king of kings, sends long and wise missives to the Christian emperor Caesar, together with his resplendent gifts, they are received dismissively. But when Simon sends him a puny letter, the emperor immediately gets up to his feet, welcomes the letter with both hands, and grants Simon request. Moreover, the acts continue. You, Shapur, do not have a state secret that he, Simon, does not immediately write down and communicate to the Caesar, so that what it is all about, even if they did not instigate the Sasanians' persecution of the Christians, the Jews, and perennial enemies of Jesus and his followers, actively supported it. We look at the more concrete religious issues broke up in the Acts of the Martyrs. We find a number of themes that are frequently emphasized. First and foremost is the refusal of the Christians to worship the sun and the fire, and most holy objects of Zoroastrian cult. The earliest martyrdom described in the Acts, the martyrdom of the bishop Shapur and his co-religionists, all bears with the accusation of the Magians that they cannot practice the religion because of the Nazarenes who despise the fire, revile the sun, and do not honor the water. Other accusations are that the Christians refuse to eat blood, i.e. ritual slaughtered meat, bury their dead in the earth, and often refuse to marry, but instead proclaim the ideal of virginity. Most of these Christian customs have been abhorrent to the Zoroastrians. Most of them must have found the approval of the Jews. In other words, with regard to many of the Zoroastrian religious sensibilities, there cannot have been much of a difference between Christians and Jews, and Carter was therefore right to put both on an equal footing. The conspicuous exception is the ideal of virginity, which appears in almost all of the martyrdoms of women. This is clearly something of which the Jews did not approve of either, and which immediately reminds us of the Bavli's attack on the New Testament's birth narrative, Jesus born from a virgin. We do not know whether the Jews stand behind the Zoroastrian critique of the Christians' claim that God was born of a human woman, whose conduct moreover was not beyond any doubt, but the possibility can certainly not be ruled out. More important, the fate of the many Christian martyrs, beginning with the long persecution under Shapur II, did not escape the notice of the Sasanian Jews. In fact, we have seen they may have been played an active role in nourishing the suspicion of the Sasanian authorities with regard to the political implications connected with the dissident Christian sect. Just as Musen has pointed to the fact that the martyrologies preserved in the Acts of the Syrian martyrs follows the ideal of a conspicuous imitatio Christi, to make the details of martyrs that conform as much as possible to the passion of Jesus, and the various characteristics that he lists. Two are particularly illuminating in our context. The Friday is the preferred day of martyrdom, and that the corpse of the dead martyr is taken away in secret. As to the former, the Acts mentions explicitly that Simon and his friends were sentenced and killed on a Friday between the 6th and the 10th hour, the very time that Jesus carried the cross and was finally crucified. Interestingly enough, Buhastazat, a high Persian official and Christian, who first denies his Christian faith and only in a second attempt accepts its consequences, is deemed worthy of being martyred only in Thursday, the 13th of Nisan, and some later, and presumably less important, martyrs die just on any Friday, not the Friday of Jesus' execution. With regard to secretly taking away the corpse of the martyr, we are reminded of the New Testament narrative only in Matthew that the high priest and Pharisees demand of Pilate to guard Jesus' tomb carefully for 3 days, lest the Jews secretly steal his corpse and claim that he has risen from the dead after 3 days, as he had promised. In a clear imitation of Jesus' faith, the Acts frequently mentions that the Christian co-religionists of the martyr secretly take away or steal the body and bury it. For example, after Bishop Schäfer was martyred, his Christian brethren came, stole the body, and buried it secretly. In Akepsemas case, the torturers have his unburied body guarded, but after 3 days, an Armenian Hans Christian hostess secretly takes it away. Another martyr by the name of Joseph was taken away and, as the text explicitly says, hidden whether by God or a human being, we do not know because his corpse was not seen and not known in the place. Similarly, the corpse of the monk Margiwargis is displaced from 3 days and 3 nights on the cross, guarded by many soldiers, lest the Christians come and secretly take away his pure and holy body. This is not just an imitatio Christi, but moreover an infection of the Matthew narrative, what Matthew puts into the mouths of the Jews, the fear that Jesus' disciples or someone else might steal his body in order to claim that he was resurrected, is now adopted by the Christians and turned positively. Yes, the martyrologists argue the corpses of the deceased martyrs are indeed secretly taken away, however, by us Christians in order not to fake but to facilitate resurrection. The case of Joseph is particularly revealing because the next plainly hints at the possibility that he was immediately resurrected. So, in an ironic sense, the Jews finally proved to be right, even though the early Christians maintained that they did not steal the body of Jesus because he was allegedly resurrected. The Sasanian brethren admittedly do have the habit of stealing the bodies of the martyrs to make precisely the same claim that they are resurrected. Since these and similar patterns appear in many of the martyrologies, it is hard to avoid the conclusion that the Sasanian Jews must have been aware of them. To be sure, such patterns are, to different degrees, literary devices that belong to the genre of these particular martyrologies and not necessarily historical facts. Clearly, not all of the martyrs died on a Friday, but the pattern of the imitatio Christi is too prominent to be simply disregarded as fiction, let alone that nothing speaks against the possibility that some Sasanian Jews could and indeed read the Acts of the Martyrs, which after all was written in Syriac and is Aramaic dialect, very close to the Babylonian Aramaic, and that the Christians were very eager to take away and hide the corpses of the martyrs to indicate the resurrection is an element of the martyrologies that even virtually makes a lot of sense. In sum, the increasingly precarious status of the Christians in the Sasanian Empire, with the waves of persecutions breaking out under Herzog II and continuing under some of his successors, makes it highly likely that a cultural climate could develop in which the Jews felt not only free but even encouraged to express their anti-Christian sentiments, and that they could expect to be supported in this endeavor by the Persian government. Hence it should not come as a surprise that we find the most graphic polemic against Jesus in the Babylonian Talmud, and not in Palestinian sources. Then in Bavli, a conflict emerges that is not a conflict anymore between Jews and Jewish Christians, or Christian Jews, i.e. Christianity in the making, but between Jews and Christians in the very process of defining themselves, i.e. the Christian Church. The polemic that the Bavli shares with us is sketchy and has unfortunately been tempered with by Christian censors, but it nevertheless allows us a glimpse of a very vivid and fierce conflict between two competing religions under the suspicious eye of the Sasanian authorities.